Good afternoon, class. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I just wanted to check the volume on YouTube and then I will begin immediately. Right. I think I can hear my voice pretty clearly. So, on that note, I will begin with today's class, which, as usual, is a regular feature of our content, which is the daily newspaper session. I actually wasn't 100% sure that we'll receive the newspaper today because, 15th August, historically, the presses do remain closed. So that is why I didn't take a chance by conducting today's session. So instead, right now I'm scheduling day before yesterday's session, which is of the 14th. So 14th newspaper I'm gonna assess today. It'll hardly take an hour today because it's in a future this thing. So before I begin, I am going to introduce you guys a little bit to the Unacademy platform. As you are aware, as you can read, it is India's largest e-learning platform, and our channel is called the Let's Crack Management Exams. So you get a number of exams from this thing. From the platform, you get access for NEET, JEE, UGC net, etc., but also management, especially CAT. This is a brief introduction about myself. As you can see the picture, I guess it pretty much matches with the picture you're now seeing on video. Aritro Dasgupta, that's the name, and I'm an MBA from the unique Institute of Indian Institute of Forest Management, which is located in Bhopal. I graduated from my MBA in 2010, and it's been a decade. Passed out is wrong English, so that's why I use the term graduated. It's been a decade of work experience, a bit more actually, a bit more than a decade now, running into my 11th year. So I've worked in teaching, training, strategy consulting, and in content writing. I will take a session with you someday on what exactly is a career in content writing. Most of my experience has been India, but I've also worked in the Middle East, been published in the USA. Some of my lectures have been shown live in a university in Nigeria, and toppers to several exams have been my students. So last 5 years I have been specifically into the coaching segment. So toppers from exams such as CAT, CLAT, and the UJAT have been my students. Of course, all this has been primarily offline. This year I'm pretty confident that online as well you guys will promote my name further. On this note, what all you're going to get from our platform: one is daily live classes. You can notice my classes going on. You have several other classes as well. If you click on this channel, if you see the cursor now, Crack Management Exams, that is the name of our channel, and you can view a number of sessions with that. There are live tests and quizzes as well, which I'll be taking. Just to show you, on the right hand side we have the chat window. So here I'll keep engaging you guys with questions from time to time. The course content is structured from our head office, which is located in Bengaluru, the Silicon Valley of India. That's where most of the edtech companies are located in. We individual educators can modify the content and we can add through our creativity. And of course, you guys get unlimited access once you are through, once you've enrolled. Even if you miss one session, you can always look at recorded sessions. So many of my sessions are recorded on YouTube. These are some of our star educators. You can take a look at their names. But more than just the names, please also do look into their experience, their achievements, the watch minutes per educator, as well as the number of followers they all have. This will give you an idea of some of the big names. But of course, there are others as well who are coming up, some of them on our channel itself. And of course, they are mostly into verbal, quants, and reasoning. I, of course, will be tackling general awareness for you guys. So hopefully, on that note as well, you will soon have a top educator on the Unacademy platform. What are the live classes you will get? So this is how you get notifications for the classes. This is not about today, but just a general sample of how you receive the notifications. You need to prepare. So this is of course for specific subjects, but you also get notifications for batches. So that is for individual classes. This is for entire batches which can be formed. So batches could be formed with individual educators for a subject, as is put in on the bottom of the page. You can see Mr. Shukla for his gems of grammar. That is for a particular subject, but and of course a single educator. But the ones are above, you can see there can be multiple educators. There are 12 on the left, 11 on the right, and that is for all the subjects of CAT, nothing specific. We are all also very conscious about the fact that many people may not be adept in English, but they might show a high propensity towards learning. That's why our platform is there in 16 different languages: English, Hindi, Malayalam, Tamil, and 12 other languages. So you can learn from any of these. You can learn anytime, anywhere. All you need is a PC, a tablet, or a mobile phone. Just plug in. Especially for my subject, there aren't any complex calculations to be made. So anytime you feel comfortable, please go ahead, plug in a earphone or something, and keep hearing out the lectures. That will be pretty good for you guys. It's a schedule, I told you, that works ideally with you. There are live polls as well. I showed you how on YouTube, on the live chat window, questions may be asked. But similarly, we also have the unacademy.com platform, and watch out for my session tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to take a session on what was that? Yeah, on January current affairs. So please be there. I have already taken that session on YouTube, but I'm going to repeat that on the Unacademy platform, because that is a very different platform and you get something really specific there. You can also get your doubts cleared while you interact with your educator. So that's there on the Unacademy platform, which has a very good chat window. But it's also true about YouTube. I'm showing this to you on the right hand side of the page. Any questions, any doubts you have, please feel free to comment there. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Besides the live test, which will be put out instantly to you guys, you will also be receiving tests from the center. There'll be curated tests, which will be the head office will be running. They will be on the real exam pattern, and thus you will stay on your preparation, will stay on track. Your progress can also be measured from time to time. So it's really important to constantly test yourself and appear for mocks, because you even get a detailed report and analysis on the entire session. You get detailed PDFs as well. Tomorrow's class, which I'll be taking on the unacademy.com, you can download the PDF. You can get access to class notes with educator annotation, so you can revisit and relearn anytime you wish to. So this is my code at the bottom. If you wish to enroll in my classes or for our channel, you can use that code. You will get a 10% off. Please read. Both the columns are the same, so just read any one side of it. That should be good enough. So just read this once. Right. I guess you've all gone through this, so easy to understand. It often appears more attractive when you take up the short-term courses, because then the payment is lesser. The long-term you end up paying more, but you actually pay less per month the longer you go. So I would recommend you all go for minimum 12 months or even 2 years, because in the long run that also helps. Right, so I'm done with the introduction on the Unacademy platform. Now I'm gonna move towards the content for the class, which is about the daily newspaper. As usual, I'm gonna begin with your favorite newspaper, The Hindu, and I think you can find something really interesting today. You can actually notice that Unacademy is right there on the front page, because we are organizing a really important national seminar. It's already been held, an e-seminar or a webinar as it's called. But since I'm analyzing 2 days as back, so yeah, 14th this was held. Right. I do need to keep checking out for my volume. So I will. Right. So I think you can all see the this thing, massive this thing. So on 14th August, Dr. Hamid Ansari, the former Vice President of India, also a retired Chief of the Indian Army, Colonel of one of the Army divisions, and also a writer, a leadership coach. These four people are there on day one because it's about defense exams. That's why the number of defense person, and Sonu Sood has become a really important humanitarian. He's been known as now, of course, a very good actor as well. He's there on the second day as his actor, television personality, and serial investor, Ranvijay Singh Singha. He'll be there. Another personnel from the army, and of course Gul Panag, a famous actor, model, and also a thought leader nowadays. Both these people, all these people will be present over the days. Moving on to the first, this thing I've told you about the Rajasthan incident, and about right, how the government does now seem pretty stable. The Prime Minister has spoken about the transparent taxation, honoring the honest. Transparent taxation, honoring the honest, TTHH. So this will be started from 25th of September, which is actually the birth anniversary of Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. So on this particular day, a new faceless digital tax appeal system will be available for the taxpayers. Okay, the rains, of course, keep raging on in Mumbai, but now also in Delhi. Delhi has did see massive waterlogging over the days. Delhi now sees, of course, this is 2 days as older newspaper, so I'm not going to do things which are daily stuff. Only things which are of broad appeal, even 2 days later. So testing has actually started for the returning migrants. Migrant labor. I don't like using the term internal migrants. Let's put it that way. A lot of the internal migrant labor which was there in Delhi, and they walked back or they reached back using trains, they are now returning home, returning to Delhi. Many of them have returned. Many are planning to come back because Delhi is, of course, where there's a lot of opportunities for work. But once they're going to reach back, they will be subjected to COVID testing, because obviously otherwise there can be further spread of the disease. So this is something which is going to take place. Something interesting has happened in Odisha. The High Court in Odisha has actually written to the state government, prescribing the state government to issue a circular to the doctors of the state. So the High Court writes to the state government to write to the doctors in the state. And what is the reason? It is that from now on the doctors should write everything in capital letters, because what happens is, a lot of, I'm sure we've all faced doctors whose writing has sometimes not been understandable by us, or because they often write very quickly, and and of course the stuff is very technical, so very difficult for the common people to understand. Pharmacists and medical store people do understand usually, but there could be some medicines which appear very similar in terms of names, so that could lead to wrong subscription. And that is why the High Court has made this request that the state government should do something. Staying on with Odisha, I told you some time back about the Sero survey that took place in Delhi. Similar to Delhi, Haryana also did something likewise. Now, Odisha has also started its own Sero survey, which is rapid testing of people. Now, one of the hotspots in the state, which is the district of Ganjam, I don't know if you've heard of this district, Gangjam, Ganjam. So, in Ganjam, the Sero survey has found that about a third of the population, exactly 31% of the population, already has antibodies present, which means one, they've probably already contacted the disease, but secondly, the good thing is they have already got the immunity to fight this disease. So, if you have faced this disease but recovered, that is probably not a bad thing at all. That is as per the medical experts and those who are conducting the sero survey. And in fact, this report also pretty much thumbs out any chances that there may be community spread. As per this report, there doesn't seem to be any community spread as yet in the state. Right. In fact, the fatality rate is 0.02%, which is fatality rate is one of the indicators of transmission. So this is indeed very low. I'm going to move on further to the I'm going to move on further to the local pages now. So Delhi airport used to account for about 23% of all domestic passengers, but now the number has gone up to sorry, it was less than 23%, but now it has gone up to 23%. So almost a fourth of all domestic travelers by plane are now from the Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi. Although the total numbers are much less than pre-COVID numbers, but the domination of Delhi has actually increased all over the country in terms of the number of uh, flights being taken and the number of people who are actually taking flights. So an interesting advisory has gone out by the Delhi government against kite flying in Delhi. Kite flying is perfectly fine. It's one of the things that we all do during this time. But there is this feeling that kite flying could lead to, because there are places where there are overhead electric lines. So those could be really badly affected. There could be fatalities as well. Things could be that bad. Also, it's raining right now. So the combination can be really dangerous for many. Right, moving on. There's this report I told you a few days back regarding air pollution and how air pollution has not, although it did decline in the first period, eventually it is not really growing. But now what has happened is it has started the bridge between pre-lockdown and post-lockdown air pollution is sadly reducing. So, what is that? Why is it happening? It's because of ACs. There's excessive dependence on ACs because it's getting hotter and hotter. So, just giving you certain figures, when the first lockdown was announced towards the end of March and early April, if you compare the figures for this year, 2020, to that 2 years back, I'm only taking data from Delhi, but this is indicative for all, at least the biggest cities in India. Mm, so in the first phase, the pollution, the heat generated, heat stress from the electric grid was a staggering 40% less than usual because all the offices were closed, malls, restaurants were closed. So that led to about two-fifths less usage. Lockdown 2, it increased a bit, but it was still about 35 to 37% of last year's figures. It got 31 to 34% in the third lockdown, followed by a mere 17 to 23% in the fourth. But by now it is reduced to barely 10 to 12%. So it's still less than last year's figures, but not as drastically less now as it was in the first period. So air conditioners. See if you can use less of it, because that is something which is leading to a lot of heat stress. Right, I've told you about the testing which has begun for the migrants in Delhi. So there is something which I wanted to discuss about the tribals of India, and that is something which is coming up here. And I've said this before to you guys, that please do not compartmentalize your brain into static GK and current affairs. Static and current are both related. Static hoga tabhi current hoga. If you have knowledge of our constitution, only then you can understand a new amendment. If you know the business of how a certain industry works, only then you can understand what is the latest acquisition all about. So please do not compartmentalize your mind. That's something which a lot of people do regarding static and current affairs. Regarding tribes of India, there are actually two kinds of tribes in India. I mean, there are different ways of classifying them, and there could be many types. But in terms of legal status, there are two kinds. So there's something called schedules. In our constitution, we have something called schedules. So there are total 12 schedules. These are notes in addition to the articles. Now there's a fifth schedule and there's a sixth schedule, which deal with the list of tribes. Those in the fifth schedule, they are tribals which are mainly from mainland India, not including Northeast or the Andaman Islands. So on these areas, tribals are actually living in more or less the same area of land as non-tribals are, which is why these tribals, they are part of Schedule 5. The kind of status and protection they receive is not as much. They receive protection just like anybody else. But in Schedule 6 areas, which are in the Northeast and in Andaman, the tribals get greater freedom. They can actually pursue their traditional lifestyle. Why? Because they are the majority in those states, like in Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland. There the tribals are a majority. So there is a group, there are a couple of tribal groups in Arunachal Pradesh. They are looking for, within the sixth schedule or Article 371, as it's a part of. So they are part of the fifth schedule right now, but they want to be included in the sixth schedule. And they're not just in Arunachal Pradesh, but also in a couple of other states, all of them bordering China and Myanmar, or at least one of the two. So that includes Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Tripura. So that is something which is being linked right now. I had told you about the DPR some time back, which is the detailed project report about the new metro line in Gurugram. So that is something when new stations are to be built with more interchange. So the Haryana government has now finally given its consent to this. So most likely this corridor will start construction very soon. The detailed plan is now out. So more and more areas within Gurugram will be included in this, and that of course will further boost the ridership in this space. Now moving on to the west of the country, in the state of Maharashtra, the city of Pune, which is India's eighth biggest city, Maharashtra's second biggest city. There's this new scheme which has come up, the APJ Abdul Kalam Pura. Pura is for providing urban amenities in rural areas. It sounds like an oxymoron, but the idea here is that the urban facilities which we take for granted here, they are often not available in rural areas. So for that, better infrastructure is to be built. So what has happened is during this COVID-19, because people have not been venturing out much, so every time you notice, whenever a road is to be built, diversions are to be done, that leads to a lot of chaos for other people. But now that people aren't coming out much, it is actually a golden period to impose all your infrastructural developments. So this body, which is the Maharashtra Knowledge Corporation Limited, they have taken up in this Pune district a massive infrastructure census. So right now they're doing a census of whatever is available in the rural areas so that they can fully push in towards the work, which is already begun, but you need more of that. Right, moving on to the editorial page. So there's a very good article on the editorial page which I want all of you to read, since you're all from in some way or the other connected to the education sector, since you're all students right now. Do put in your comments. I do keep checking on the YouTube this thing. So there's this article called Schools Without Freedom. This is written by Mr. Krishna Kumar, who's a former director of the NCERT. I'm sure you've all studied from NCERT books when you were children. NCERT stands for the National Council of Educational Research and Training. So the writer, Mr. Krishna Kumar, he speaks about the terrible state of schools in rural areas and how village schools, they do not have enough autonomy. He also feels that all our policies, he has not referred specifically to the NEP or any specific policy, but he generally says that all the policies in the country, whether in education or otherwise, they are really all encompassing. They are macro, but they do not look into the micro details. And although decentralization is provided lip service, it doesn't really work, because the way the machinery is organized, it is so that those at central positions, they take the decision, and this takes away the decision making powers of experienced principals and teachers in the different schools. Village schools, for instance, right now, so many of them are being shut. Technology, he feels, and that's something which a lot of other experts also believe, should enhance education. But what has now happened? So I'm not here taking any side, because I do understand there's a reason why schools are shut. I'm just telling you what he says. The article is good. It's good to see every side of the picture. Then it'll give us our viewpoint. So what he says is that technology should enhance, but not. This is right now what's happening is small children cramped in front of the tiny phone sets the whole day. This does not create a good conducive learning environment. Instead, in village schools especially, he feels that there's a lot of scope for practical learning. Children should be encouraged to explore out there, be inquisitive, and if they have a smartphone, then actually record videos of what they're seeing. Even if they do not have the smartphones, they can actually check a number of other things as well. So this traditional model of a babudam, which is not allowed schools on the ground to take their decisions, this is further accentuated, and the problem has been heightened thanks to COVID-19. That's what the writer believes. He feels that a lot of teachers are competent and they should be given greater freedom on the ground. I'll move on to the next article. I'll just get some water for myself. Give me a moment, please. There's an interesting article called Limits of Racial Politics. We Indians have become really excited since Kamala Harris, who's of part Indian descent, she has been nominated as the running mate of Joe Biden in the US presidential elections. But there is this article which says that for Indian American leaders, the policy points matter more than the race. So that is a good indicator. There's an article called "The Challenges in Counting the Dead." Now, this is been written by Mr. Giridhar A. Babu. He's a professor of epidemiology at the Indian Institute of Public Health, or the PHFI, which is located in Bengaluru. Epidemiologists are people who study epidemics from a macro viewpoint, unlike individual doctors who manage individual health issues. These people help out with the policy issues from a broader point of view, and they look into several other lifestyle and economic issues as well, while they look into whenever there's this thing. So this professor, he has spoken about how there are challenges. The article says the challenges in counting the dead. In fact, he says that in India since 2009, a death registration has become compulsory. Yet about 14% of all deaths in India go unreported, even under normal circumstances. So that is pre-COVID-19. But he feels that even now, a lot of those who are dying due to COVID-19 may not be recorded. One of the great challenges which he acknowledges that the virus of COVID-19 has not been easily isolated. So in many cases, we do not really know whether the person has died due to some other existing comorbidities, or it is due to COVID-19 alone. So this is proving to be a challenge. In fact, he's made a comparison of the total population, the number of deaths, the percentage of older people in some of the leading capitals of the world. He's compared countries which are among the most affected, with more than 1 million cases. So capitals of those countries, so which are Madrid, Santiago, Washington DC, London, Brasilia, Moscow, Delhi, Rome. In fact, in the case of Rome, he's taken the overall district of Lazio, Riyadh, Jakarta, and Berlin. He's looked into all of these to assess how things are working, and he feels that maybe we are undercounting to quite an extent. There's an interesting article by Mr. Ben Wallace, who's the United Kingdom Secretary of State for Defense. He has spoken, of course, on the eve of India's independence. Remember, this is 14th of August, so it's a day before India's Independence Day from, I know, ironically, the United Kingdom. So he's written that although both UK and India are independent countries, but none of us are alone. We are partners in trade, in research. A very good example is the collaboration between Oxford University, AstraZeneca, and the Serum Institute of India in Pune, and how they are working together. Right, so he has actually even spoken about the forgotten army of the past and how India was one of Britain's most loyal allies during the Second World War. India actually raised the world's largest volunteer force because there was no drafting at that time. So Indians were not just suddenly sent home letters that you are drafted in. So yet India managed to raise an army of 2.5 million men during the Second World War when they served all over. India was also responsible for huge shipments of other goods such as 200 million tons of coal, 6 million tons of iron ore, and more than a million tons of steel to the Pacific War effort. The Pacific War effort predominantly against Japan. So that is where he feels that both the countries they are together historically and even today, and that we will continue to work together. There's a debate here between a couple of sides. So the question is, should childcare centers be opened sooner, even if schools are not, because a lot of children might face certain troubles. There are two experts who are who are debating on this thing. One on either side of the divide. I'm not going to get into the day-to-day numbers of COVID-19. I had told you earlier about the landslip in Idukki, which killed more than 50 people. 55 bodies have been recovered. The Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, he has already confirmed that the kin of those who have been affected will be rehabilitated. Right. So the nearby Munnar area, Munnar is on the Western Ghats. The landscape project work plan will now be submitted. A five-member team has been set up to probe the Kerala air crash. The AAIB or the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has created the team, which will be led by Captain S.S. Chahar into this thing. A really renowned scriptwriter and lyricist, mainly a lyricist from Malayalam cinema, Mr. Chunakara Ramanakutty, who was one of the biggest names in songwriting in the 1980s and 1990s. He has tragically passed away. However, there is good news from neighboring Karnataka, where the former Chief Minister, Congress's Mr. Siddaramaiah, he has now recovered from COVID-19. He was Chief Minister of the state from 2013 to 18. But now, of course, he was found positive for COVID-19, but he has now recovered and returned home. Right. For the national news, I had told you about the BSP and Congress merger case in Rajasthan. Not much progress here. There's interesting. Okay, I'll move on here. Before that, I will just speak little bit about the exams. So exams were cancelled in a couple of states like Delhi and Maharashtra. The UGC or the University Grants Commission, which is the regulatory body for all the universities in India, they have hit out hard at these two states, stating that they should not have cancelled. However, the states have assured them it is due to the unmanageable pandemic. So there is this overall consensus that the students in these states, in general, all over the country, will be badly affected by this thing. Okay, now there is some really important international news. Uh, First, one of them involves India, another does not directly involve us, but of course, eventually it is this thing. So one of them, what has happened is India and neighboring country, fellow SARC member Maldives, we have inked a $500 million project agreement. $100 million will be invested straight away by India. Another $400 million is worth line of credit, or LOC has been signed. Line of credit means it will continue after the first investment on a regular basis. So this is total $500 million which will be set up. It is known as the GMCP, the project which stands for Greater Malay Connectivity Project. So let me just tell you a little bit on Maldives' geography. Maldives is a country many of you would have heard in the context of maybe honeymoons. Your brother, sister, somebody had a wedding and they went to Maldives. It's a popular honeymoon destination for Indians, but also for adventure sports, really famous. So Maldives is a group of islands known as archipelago. Groups of islands in geography, we call it an archipelago. So all these islands together, they give out what is called so every island, as I said, this country is famous for tourism. So each island is home to some five-star hotel. Typically, that's how it works. Malé is probably an exception. It's the capital of the country, so it has something of an international airport, a small one because it's accessible not directly from say Delhi, but you can access it from Colombo or Kochi in Kerala, or even from Chennai. So how this typically works is you um, land in Malé. From there, by boat, you are transported to any of the other islands which have these hotels, these resorts. You don't have much of mass tourism in Maldives. This is a country which is renowned for very typical five-star luxury tourism. So what this is going to do is this is going to connect bridges between these islands. So from once this project is done, people can actually travel by road from one island to another. Island hopping will literally be possible even through road because these bridges will be constructed. So this has been confirmed by the External Affairs Minister of India, Mr. S. Jaishankar, and also by Mr. Abdullah Shahid, who's the foreign minister from Maldives. So an air connectivity bubble will also be created. A bubble is where travel is only possible between these two countries, but not anywhere else. Even a direct ferry service and submarine cable have been discussed into this thing. Right. The other one, as I told you, does not directly involve us, but what has happened is Australia has opened 5G connectivity. It has just started with that 5G internet connectivity. And just like India, they've been very cautious about Chinese vendors. But one difference with India is while India has banned several Chinese apps, Australia has not done that, but they have just barred Chinese investment in this particular field. So Chinese companies are not part of the tender that is offering this infrastructure. So Australia has shared after the first round has taken place. They have shared the experience with India. That's what India wanted, so that India can also plan for our own 5G network. So Australia has just shared how it has happened. The information was shared by the Minister Councillor for Home Affairs of Australia. Her name is Ms. Tara Kavanagh. So critical infrastructure and aspects have been set up here. Moving on, there is some really sad news about nurses. 509 of them have apparently been infected. I told you a few days back how IMA, the Indian Medical Association, has actually written an open letter to the Prime Minister discussing the almost 200 doctors who have died during the pandemic, maximum of them in Tamil Nadu. Something similar has happened. There is, in fact, 20 of them have died. There is then an association known as the TNAI, or Trained Nurses Association of India. They say that total 509 nurses have been infected. 20 of them have died while providing care. And the three states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, and West Bengal, they are responsible for the maximum number of cases as well as the maximum number of deaths. The National Testing Agency, or the NTA, has confirmed that the NEET exam, NEET, I think you are all aware, it is a national exam for all the medical medical entrances to all the colleges. There was a lot of talk that because foreigners are not allowed in now, air travel is not taking place. So all the NRIs or even foreigners who are eligible to apply for this exam, there some online form will be established for them. But that is not taking place. The NTA has confirmed. As of now, travel bubbles have been formed by India with USA, France, Germany, UAE, and Kuwait. These five countries. Maldives, I told you, there is talks of soon something to be started. But in spite of that, apart from those who will be coming, for the others, there is no online provision. The NTA has confirmed. But on the other hand, the CBSE, or the Central Bureau for School Exams, Secondary Education, they have also confirmed that the CBSE board exams, which were cancelled in July, they might take place again in September. They will be sort of optional, because a lot of students feel that they could have done really well in the exam, so they can actually sit for this exam if they feel they will do better in the real exam. So in September, this exam will take place. Sticking with educational institutions, the Punjab-based IIT Ropar, which is one of the new IITs set up in the 11th five-year plan. So IIT Ropar has come up with a room disinfection service. This is actually being tested by the FICCI. There's a research and analysis center, the FICCI Research and Analysis Center in New Delhi. They've actually tested the efficacy. So the ultraviolet radiations to inactivate viruses and bacteria have proven to be successful. Okay. There's something really interesting that has been proposed by the CJI, or the Chief Justice of India, Justice Sharad Bobde. He has mentioned how there was the 1963 Official Languages Act, and he says that more languages should be considered in the courts. Because in the parliament you can actually speak in multiple languages. English and Hindi are considered the official languages of communication, but total 22 languages are recognized under the 8th schedule in India. He feels that similarly in courts as well, many more languages should be considered, and not just English and Hindi. He also says that using Google Translator, we are now able to much easily do this, and he also says that it's not going to be very tough. While he did quote a line from Einstein about how translations are not really worth the salt. I don't want to get into the quotation, but yes, something like that. But still, Justice Bobde feels that it's not exactly a translation, because Indians are comfortable in their regional languages. Even if they're speaking or it's being written in English, that is the artificial part. So once we do it in our own languages, it'll actually be easier. That is what Justice Bobde has spoken about. So, in fact, he made this statement to the Solicitor General of India, Mr. Tushar Mehta, who's representing the government of India. Solicitor General is actually the second most powerful lawyer in the country, just below the Attorney General in the country, who is Mr. K.K. Venugopal. So, immediately after that, we have the Solicitor General. Advocate General is for the states, Attorney General is for the center. So in many of the non-Hindi speaking parts of India, he feels that in rural areas, a lot of people do struggle to communicate in their vernacular, and that needs to change. And there is a lot of criticism about vicious TV debates, toxic debates. In fact, one of the spokespersons of one of the Congress party, he passed away an hour after returning from a debate. So he suffered from a heart attack. Of course, this is not yet fully confirmed what if the debate had a direct cause, but yes, this is a bit of a problem. A lot of our TV news has become quite vicious at times. That something has to be done now. The state of Meghalaya has received a case of African swine fever, so that is something that needs to be worked on. The Maharashtra government is also evaluating. I told you about Delhi and Maharashtra postponing the exam, but now Maharashtra is considering conducting the CET, or the Common Entrance Test, for various colleges. There's something called the IFFI, which is the Indian International Film Festival of India, the most prestigious film festival from India. It is held every year in most of the years in Goa, and it's been held for more than half a century, more than 50 years. This year it is expected to be held in end of November. There was some speculation that this might be postponed or cancelled completely, but that has now been rejected. It will be held, however, a lot will be virtual screenings. Many of them will not be contact screenings at the point. The country of Lebanon, we've been speaking about, they have declared a state of emergency in Beirut due to a lot of the violence that is taking place. There is some news from about Kamala Harris. She's originally her mother is from Chennai in India, but her father is from Jamaica. And even in people of Jamaica, just like those in India, they are really excited about the prospect of having a vice president, and eventually a president who is who has roots in their country. So there is a lot of talk about her family, and there's a lot of pride there. I told you about the street protests in Belarus. Hundreds more have been detained after the controversial results of the latest elections that took place. Mr. Lukashenko, of course, remains in power. His key opponent has now fled to neighboring Lithuania, which is one of the Baltic states and one of the former USSR countries, just like Belarus. There are a couple of really important things. Before that, I'll quickly run up with a few more things. Facebook, I told you, removed a few tens of millions of hate messages on on the platform. Twitter did something likewise as well. Now Facebook has upped its effort against wrong information. Right. Now, there are two really important pieces of news which I want to discuss with you at length. One of them is from the Mediterranean Sea. Are you aware where is the Mediterranean Sea? Can somebody tell me? Let me just write down the question. I'm not sure of the spelling though, but I think you did understand Mediterranean Sea. Are you aware, anybody, where is this located in? It was actually called the Mare Nostrum by the Romans. Mare Nostrum means our sea, because the Romans, they had dominance all over the Mediterranean. So where is the Mediterranean? It's between southern Europe and North Africa. It is almost a lake because it is nearly surrounded on all four sides. However, on all the corners, you do have tiny outlets towards the ocean, so it remains a sea. It's one of the biggest seas in the world and one with a lot of history. Famous for its cuisine, Mediterranean cuisine, considered one of the healthiest, and famous for its wines as well. That region. Now, the Mediterranean Sea has this country called Cyprus. So France, which is of course one of the leading military powers of that region, they have reinforced the naval forces in the Mediterranean. Why are they doing that? Because there has been some tension building up lately between the countries of Turkey and Greece. Now, how are they involved over Cyprus? Let me tell you. Cyprus is a tiny island nation in the Mediterranean Sea. Fairly prosperous country, used to be a British colony. Now, about 3/4 of the island is Greek speaking, predominantly Greek speaking, and that part of the island considers itself an independent nation. About a fourth of the country, especially towards the north, known as Northern Cyprus, that area is disputed. Turkey claims sovereignty over that. Majority of the people there are Turkish speaking. Greece is not directly involved, but the point is majority of the Cypriots are Greek speaking. So there is, although Greece does not have any direct territorial claim over Cyprus, but it does have indirect an influence because the people are Greek speaking. So Greece has historically rubbished Turkey's claims of hold over northern Cyprus. Cyprus is a small country, so Greek help is desirable. So Greece and Turkey, they have both mobilized their naval forces on the ocean, on the Mediterranean Sea. So France, of course, being a leading power there, has also mobilized its own so that there is no major conflagration in that region. There's a fun fact regarding Cyprus. The island of Cyprus, believe it or not, has more cats than it has human beings. That's correct. The feline population of the common cat exceeds the human population on Cyprus. There's a fairly famous football club as well from Cyprus called Apoel Nicosia, which I remember a few years back, I think reached the second round of the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Anyway, the final really important news for the day, before I move into sports and other stuff, is again from the Middle East, not far from the Mediterranean. Israel, which does touch the Mediterranean, is going to reach agreement to have diplomatic ties. This is massive with the United Arab Emirates. UAE has historically been one of those countries that has opposed the existence of Israel completely. I remember, somebody telling me he has Israeli visa on his. He has to visit Israel. So will he not be allowed to revisit UAE? So then we checked, and Israel actually hands out paper visas because it knows that many countries in the world, the moment you have an Israeli visa stamped on your passport, you will not be able to visit any other country after that. This is really far reaching. UAE and Israel forging some sort of diplomatic ties. And in fact, the mediator here has been USA. This entire announcement was actually made by Donald Trump, the president of USA, in one of the rare cases of diplomatic success by the Trump administration. The Crown Prince of UAE, who's Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, he has been involved in this deal directly with Israel. So they are now planning a lot of collaboration on COVID-19 as well as working out something of a treatment, some economic collaboration as well. Today I will only stick to the Hindu, not going to Times of India today, but I'll move into the sports pages. Before that, a little bit into business, is that something which I think is really important. Now, inflation, please note down, is 6.93 for the month of July. This is more than what was in June of 6.23%. In fact, there was a poll by the news agency, world's largest news agency, Reuters, among the experts who felt that inflation for July would be 6.15%. Instead, it has gone up to 6.93%, which, as you may understand, is pretty high. Food inflation has been hit pretty badly, and that is even more dangerous because a lot of people depend on the bare survival rather than the big things. Food inflation has gone up to 9.62%, which is almost a full percentage point higher than that last year at this time. Last year at this time it was 8.72, so it's 0.9 percentage point higher, almost a percent more basically. The medium term inflation target, which the RBI has set, a medium term typically 2 quarters, which is 6 months, that the RBI has pegged at around 4%. In fact, the Indian economy is expected to contract by 4.5% this year. So in that note, this isn't really very much desirable. Now, Miss Rupa Rege, who's an economist at the L&T Financial Holdings, she says, I'll quote her exact lines: given the distortions in supply chains and transportations, I don't expect a rate cut in the remaining part of 2020. So one of the areas which could actually help us fight this core inflation could be agriculture, and I've said this before. Core inflation has, which is for the core products only, that has remained between 5.8 and 5.9% for the last 2 months. Monsoon rains, that's something very important for agriculture. Monsoon rains are expected to be around 104% of the usual long-term average. In the months of August and September, so this could lead to a bumper crop production. Air traffic went down by 82% in July compared to similar figures last year. However, Indigo, which is the largest player within India, they were doing quite badly last few months. They have slightly added share in this month. Tata Steel loss, Q1 loss, April to June loss of 4,648 crores. Interesting part, that is something which CRISIL has confirmed. CRISIL is you may remember, one credit rating agency which is affiliated to Standard and Poor. which is based in USA. CRISIL feels that the state's sales tax receipts may actually rise up by 9% in the financial year 2021. This, the organization believes, could be because of petro products, which is going to drive the trend upwards. Mr. Manish Gupta, who's a senior director at CRISIL Ratings, he feels that I'll just read out to you what he says. He feels that the first quarter saw petrol and diesel sales volume plunging by a third year on year because of the COVID 19 induced lockdown. But with the economy slowly unlocking, industrial and commercial activity clawing back, vehicular traffic has started to improve. And certain figures have been established here. Crude barrel price has also rebounded to $40. It had gone down to $30 a barrel, but now gone up to $40. There's news from the commercial vehicle segment. India's third largest player, which is Volvo Eicher, they are third behind Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland. They're roughly at the same level as Mahindra. So Volvo Eicher is going to acquire the Volvo Bus India as well. Only for commercial, only for trucks were Volvo and Eicher together, but when it came to buses, Volvo was independent, not related to Eicher in India. But now both of them, that is also going to be acquired. The deal will be worth 100 crores. The deal transactions to cover manufacture and also the local sale of Volvo buses. Any luxury buses in India with air conditioners, we tended to use the term Volvo every time. Volvo has become the new Xerox. Xerox became a synonym for all kinds of photocopying. Right now, Volvo has become somewhat like that. Whenever I wish to travel somewhere, overnight journeys, I find buses really comfortable, and we tend to say Volvo bus, meaning any bus which is, which is comfortable. Right. There's news from Grasim. Their quarter one net profit has also declined by 67% to 621 crores. Even the revenue has gone down by 32%. It's almost a third to 13,621 crores. So they are remaining profitable, but the percentage of profit has gone down significantly. India's fifth largest cement makers, Ramco Cements, they aim to be debt free in the next 3 years, says the CEO, Mr. A.V. Dharma Krishnan. CUB's first quarter profit has also gone down 17%. CUB stands for City Union Bank Limited. Finally, the last piece of news from the business page concerns a pharmaceutical company, and that company is called BE, which stands for Biological E. It's led by Miss Mahima Datta, who is the MD of the organization. So, what her team has confirmed, she has herself gone on record to say that BE is now in a vaccine pact with none other than Johnson and Johnson. So, one of them is Janssen Pharmaceutical, and the other is the Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor is a college, one of the leading colleges of medicine, but Janssen is a company which is part of the Johnson and Johnson family. So they are developing something of a COVID-19 vaccine known as AD26.2.S. That's a long technical name, but they've signed this agreement. If this vaccine trial succeeds, BE is going to produce n number of doses almost immediately. So this, of course, is being developed by this college called Baylor, which is one of the leading medical colleges in the country. Okay, moving on a little bit into sports. I think I did tell you about Paris Saint-Germain, Atalanta, which is such a much smaller club, much less wealthy. They were leading 1-0 for a long time. Eventually, PSG scored the 2 goals. They are through. There is other news of the Champions League. I think we can discuss that later because more matches were held. Barcelona, thrashed by Bayern Munich. That was epic. But of course, there have been other results as well. There's news from the test match in England going on. Pakistan did well, but then third day was completely washed out by rains. Novak Djokovic, the Serbian 17 Grand Slam winner in lawn tennis, he has confirmed he will play in the US Open amidst lots of withdrawals. He was also one expected because he had actually tested positive once, but now he is going to he's confirmed he will play. Now there are two really important things in on the sports page which I want to discuss. One of them involves Inox, the multiplex providers, but they're not only into multiplex. There are several other things. In fact, they're quite a bit into energy as well in states like Gujarat. So Inox has been confirmed, the group Inox group, to be the main sponsors for the Indian Olympics team for Tokyo, which is going to take place now next year. This year's was postponed. Meanwhile, Delhi has not seen a professional football team for some time now. Its last team, I believe the name was Delhi FC. It could not continue, but now Delhi once again has its latest attempt at a professional football team, that is Sudeva FC. They will be playing in the I League, which is now going to be the second tier. ISL will be the first tier. So Sudeva FC, however, has confirmed they're not immediately going to recruit foreign players. They might do eventually, but right now they do not have the space or the budget. They have also confirmed that they would like to play at the Ambedkar Stadium in Delhi, which has historically been a famous stadium for football. Ambedkar Stadium also does have very easy access to the spectators. So unlike, say, Jawaharlal Nehru, which has a massive running track in between, so it obstructs the view. That is not the case here. You can directly view the matches, similar to lots of European stadiums. So there's an ad from Maruti Suzuki's Nexa. Otherwise, I'm pretty much done for the day. So I'll keep it open for a few minutes in case you guys have any questions. After that, I will proceed to close the session for the day. So let's just see. This is my code at the bottom. What are you waiting for? Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let me just show you our channel once again. I have shown you before, but just once again, let me reiterate. This is the channel. Let's crack management exams. A number of sessions are ongoing here. By ongoing, I'm not saying they're happening now. I'm just saying that they do take place. There are lots of video sessions here. You can see last 2 days I didn't take classes. Today I'm of course back. These are all these sessions that have been conducted last couple of days. So do go ahead, watch these sessions. Right, there are some interviews as well which have been taken between my teammates and some of the other professionals. So do go ahead with all of this. Otherwise, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer. Just checking the charge. Just waiting in case there are any messages here. Right, fair enough. I think there isn't really anything else now. So I think I can wrap it up now. Right. So thank you so much, all of you. See you all very soon. Do not miss my class tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm gonna start with my special session